My name is Ira. I'm 32 years old. My husband and his friends thought it'd be funny to leave me stranded in a small village in Japan after a fight. They laughed and said, "Let's see how she gets back," then they drove off. I didn't return. Before I continue, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're watching from, because this story still hurts to tell. From the outside, my marriage to Daniel looked perfect. We'd been together for 6 years, married for 3. He was successful, charming, the kind of man who could make anyone laugh at a dinner party. His friends adored him. My family thought I'd won the lottery. But behind closed doors, there was this constant feeling that I was never quite enough. Never funny enough, never interesting enough, never worth his full attention. The cracks had been showing for months. Daniel would make little comments about how I was too sensitive or how I couldn't take a joke. When I'd get upset about something he said, he'd roll his eyes and tell me I was being dramatic. His friends would laugh along, like my feelings were entertainment. But I kept trying, kept hoping things would get better, kept believing that maybe if I just learned to be cooler, more easygoing, everything would work out. That's why when Daniel suggested a trip to Japan with his college buddies, Mark, Tyler, and Jake, I thought it might be exactly what we needed. A chance to reconnect, to make new memories, to save whatever was left of us. I was so naive. I actually thought being away from our regular life would help him remember why he fell in love with me. The first few days were beautiful. We visited temples in Kyoto, ate incredible food in Tokyo, took those perfect Instagram photos that make everyone think you're living your best life. But underneath it all, I could feel the familiar tension. Daniel's friends treated me like an outsider, like I was this annoying tag-along who was ruining their boys' trip. They'd make plans without consulting me, speak in inside jokes I didn't understand, and Daniel would just let it happen. The breaking point came on our 4th day. We'd rented a car to drive through some rural areas, these tiny villages surrounded by rice fields and mountains. It was supposed to be peaceful, romantic. Instead, it turned into a nightmare. We'd stopped in this small village, I don't even remember the name, just that it was hours from anywhere significant. Daniel was driving, and his friends were in the back, already drinking even though it was barely noon. They were talking about some woman from college, reminiscing about parties I'd never been to, laughing about things that happened before I existed in Daniel's life. I made the mistake of asking if we could maybe do something together, just the two of us. Maybe walk through the village, see the local temple, actually experience the place instead of just driving through it. Daniel's response was sharp. "God, Ira, we're with my friends. Can you stop being so needy for 5 minutes?" The humiliation burned through me like acid. His friends went quiet for about 2 seconds before Mark started snickering. "Dude, you weren't kidding about the clingy thing," he said. Tyler joined in, "Bro, you need to train her better." And Jake, sweet Jake, added, "This is why I don't do serious relationships. Too much drama." They were talking about me like I wasn't even there. Like I was some badly behaved pet that needed to be put in its place. I felt tears starting to form, which only made me angrier at myself. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. So I said something I probably shouldn't have. "Maybe if you guys weren't such immature assholes, Daniel wouldn't have to choose between his wife and his friends." The car went silent. Dead silent. Daniel pulled over so abruptly I thought we'd been in an accident. We were on this narrow road surrounded by rice fields, not another car in sight. He turned around and looked at me with more anger than I'd ever seen in his eyes. "Get out," he said. I thought he was joking. "What? Get out? You want to act like a bitch? You can figure out your own way back to Tokyo." His friends were laughing now. Actually laughing. Mark was recording it on his phone. Tyler was saying, "Dude, yes, this is perfect." Jake was chanting, "Do it, do it, do it." "Daniel, this isn't funny. We're in the middle of nowhere. I don't speak Japanese. I don't even know where we are. Should have thought about that before you decided to insult my friends. Get out." I looked at his face, searching for any sign that this was just a cruel joke, that he'd break character and apologize. But there was nothing. No love, no concern, no recognition that I was his wife and he was about to abandon me in a foreign country. The worst part was his friends. They were treating this like the funniest thing they'd ever seen. Mark kept recording, Tyler was laughing so hard he could barely breathe, and Jake was literally clapping. This is legendary, bro. She's going to have to hitchhike back to civilization. Let's see how she gets back, Daniel said, and they all burst into laughter again. I got out of the car. What choice did I have? The alternative was sitting there while they continued to humiliate me, and I couldn't handle another second of their laughter. As soon as I closed the door, Daniel floored it. They drove off in a cloud of dust, leaving me standing on that empty road in a village where I couldn't read the signs, couldn't ask for directions, couldn't even explain what had happened to me. The silence after they left was deafening. No car engines, no voices, just the sound of wind through the rice fields and my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I stood there for maybe 10 minutes, just trying to process what had happened. My husband, had just abandoned me in rural Japan because I'd hurt his friend's feelings. My phone had about 30% battery left and no signal. The sun was starting to set, and I realized I might have to spend the night outside in a place where I couldn't even ask for help. But something strange happened as I stood there in that gathering darkness. The panic and fear I'd been feeling started to transform into something else. Something harder. Something colder. For 6 years, I had made myself smaller to accommodate Daniel's ego. I'd laughed at jokes that weren't funny, apologized for feelings that were valid, and convinced myself that love meant accepting being treated as less than. And for what? So that in my moment of greatest need, he could drive away laughing? I found a small inn in the village. The elderly woman who ran it didn't speak much English, but she understood help and alone. She gave me a room, helped me charge my phone, even made me tea while I tried to figure out what to do next. That's when I made the decision that changed everything. I didn't call Daniel. I didn't call his friends. I didn't beg them to come back for me. Instead, I booked a train ticket to Tokyo for the next morning, found a flight to Italy departing the following week, and started researching apartments in Florence. If you're watching this and thinking I should have handled things differently, please subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're from. I want to know if this resonates with people from different cultures. Daniel called that night. 37 times. I let every single call go to voicemail. His messages started out laughing, okay, joke's over, where are you? Then turned worried, then angry, then panicked. His friends called too. Mark, Tyler, Jake, suddenly they weren't laughing anymore. Suddenly they were concerned about my safety and wondering if I was okay. Too little, too late. I spent 5 days in Tokyo, not responding to anyone. Not Daniel, not his friends, not even my family when they started calling because Daniel had told them I'd wandered off after a fight and he couldn't find me. I let him sweat. I let him wonder. I let him experience just a fraction of what I'd felt standing on that road. The flight to Italy was the longest 7 hours of my life. Not because I was scared, I was terrified. I was flying to a country where I didn't know anyone, didn't speak the language fluently, had no job prospects and no real plan. But I was also more alive than I'd felt in years. Florence welcomed me like I'd been meant to find it all along. I found a tiny apartment in Santo Spirito, started taking Italian lessons, got a job teaching English at a language school. For the first time since college, I was making decisions based on what I wanted, not what would make Daniel happy or keep his friends from making fun of me. The silence from my old life was beautiful. No one telling me I was too sensitive. No one laughing at my feelings. No one making me feel like I had to earn basic human respect. I discovered I actually liked myself when I wasn't constantly trying to be someone else. Daniel's calls and messages became less frequent. His family stopped reaching out. My family, fed whatever story he'd concocted about our mutual separation, respected my need for space. I let them all believe whatever made them feel better. 3 weeks turned into a month. I was settling into my new routine, starting to make friends at work, actually enjoying my own company for the first time in years. I'd stopped checking my phone obsessively and started sleeping through the night again. That's when he found me. I was sitting at my favorite cafe near the Ponte Vecchio, grading papers, and enjoying an espresso, when I looked up and saw him walking toward me. Daniel. In Florence. Looking like he hadn't slept in weeks. The shock nearly knocked me off my chair. He looked awful, unshaven, disheveled, desperate. Nothing like the confident man who'd driven away laughing that day in Japan. Ira. His voice was hoarse, broken. Thank God. I've been looking everywhere for you. I stared at him for a long moment, taking in the dark circles under his eyes, the way his hands shook as he reached for the empty chair across from me. This was the man who'd found it hilarious to abandon me in a foreign country. This was the man who'd chosen his friend's entertainment over his wife's safety. How did you find me? My voice was steady, calm. It surprised us both. I hired a private investigator. I've been going crazy, Ira. Nobody knew where you were. Your family is worried sick. I thought something terrible had happened to you. Something terrible did happen to me, Daniel. You left me stranded in rural Japan and drove off laughing. He flinched like I'd slapped him. That was a mistake. We were going to come back. We drove maybe 2 miles down the road and then we turned around, but you were gone. We looked everywhere for you. You drove 2 miles and then decided abandoning your wife wasn't funny anymore? How generous. Ira, please. I know I messed up. We all know we messed up. Mark feels terrible about filming it. Tyler hasn't been able to sleep. Jake keeps saying we went too far. Now they feel terrible? After a month of not knowing if I was dead or alive, now they regret their hilarious joke? Daniel was crying now, actual tears streaming down his face. I love you. I know I didn't show it properly, I know I let my friends influence me too much, but I love you. Please come home with me. We can work this out. I looked at this man who'd shared my bed for 6 years, who'd promised to love and protect me, who'd driven away laughing while I stood alone and scared in a foreign country. And I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no love. Just complete indifference. I am home, Daniel. What do you mean? I mean this is my home now. Florence. That apartment over there with the blue shutters, that's mine. This cafe, this job, this life I've built, it's mine. And you're not part of it. His face went white. You can't be serious. You're leaving me over one stupid mistake? One stupid mistake. My voice got dangerously quiet. Daniel, you didn't accidentally leave me behind. You didn't forget I was in the car. You looked me in the eye and told me to get out. You drove away while your friends recorded my humiliation for their entertainment. You left me stranded, alone, unable to communicate, in a foreign country because I hurt your friends' feelings. But I came back for you. No, you didn't. You went looking for me when I became an inconvenience instead of entertainment. When you realized you'd actually have to explain to people where your wife was. When you realized this might actually have consequences for you. I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen, divorce papers filed with a green checkmark next to it. I filed these 2 weeks ago. You'll be served when you return to the States. Daniel stared at the phone like it was a bomb. Ira, you can't. We can fix this. I'll do anything. I'll cut contact with Mark and Tyler and Jake. I'll go to counseling. I'll spend the rest of my life making this up to you. You don't understand, Daniel. I don't want you to make it up to me. I don't want anything from you anymore. For the first time in 6 years, I'm happy. For the first time since I met you, I wake up every morning without wondering what I'll do wrong or how you'll make me feel small. I like who I am when you're not around. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and comment below with your country. I love seeing where this story reaches people around the world. He begged. For 2 hours, he sat in that cafe and begged. He promised to change, promised to be better, promised that his friends meant nothing compared to me. He told me about how miserable he'd been, how guilty he felt, how sorry everyone was. But here's what he couldn't understand: I wasn't punishing him. I wasn't trying to teach him a lesson or make him suffer. I had simply moved on. The woman who'd gotten out of that car in Japan was gone, and the person who'd replaced her didn't have room in her life for men who thought her pain was funny. When he finally realized I wasn't coming back with him, his tone changed. The desperation turned to anger. "This is insane, Ira. You're throwing away 6 years over a stupid prank. You're being completely irrational." Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, I left a marriage where I was constantly belittled and ignored, and now I have a life where I'm respected and valued. That seems pretty rational to me. What about our house? Our friends? Our life? Your house. Your friends. Your life. I was just a supporting character in the Daniel show, remember? Well, now I'm the star of my own story. He left Florence the next day. I know, because he called me from the airport, one last desperate attempt to change my mind. I let it go to voicemail. His friends tried reaching out too. Mark sent a long email about how sorry he was, how deleting the video and learning from this experience. Tyler called to say he'd told his girlfriend what happened and she dumped him, like that was somehow my fault or my problem. Jake sent flowers with a note that said, "We were jerks. Please forgive us." I blocked them all. Not out of anger, but out of indifference. They were characters in a story I was no longer telling. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Daniel had to sell the house to pay his half of our assets. I heard through mutual friends that he'd started therapy, that he'd cut contact with his college buddies, that he told people I'd had a breakdown and moved to Europe for my mental health. Let him tell whatever story helps him sleep at night. I know the truth. 6 months after that night in Japan, I met someone new. An Italian man named Luca who owns a small bookstore near my apartment. He doesn't think my feelings are entertainment. He doesn't have friends who treat me like an inconvenience. When I told him my story, he didn't laugh or make excuses or tell me I was being too sensitive. He just held me and said, "I'm sorry that happened to you. You deserved better." And that's when I knew I'd made the right choice. People ask me if I ever miss my old life, if I regret leaving everything behind over one incident. But see, it wasn't one incident. It was 6 years of incidents. 6 years of being made to feel like I was asking too much when I wanted basic respect. 6 years of being told I was too sensitive when I had normal human reactions to being treated poorly. That night in Japan wasn't the beginning of Daniel's cruelty, it was just the first time it was impossible to pretend it was anything else. They thought leaving me behind would teach me a lesson. It did. Just not the one they expected. I learned that I was stronger than I knew. I learned that I deserved better than settling for scraps of affection from people who saw me as a burden. I learned that starting over, even when it's terrifying, is better than staying somewhere you're not valued. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting back at someone, it's building such a beautiful life without them that their absence becomes a gift instead of a loss. Daniel and his friends thought it would be funny to leave me stranded. They were wrong. It wasn't funny. It was freedom. And I'm never going back.